So recording now. Welcome, Patch. How wonderful to see you in person after all of these years. This is the inaugural show for the Laughter Channel, a program where human interest meets humour interest. And this will be the first episode. And I thought it would be timely, given our association, and going back to 2004, to dedicate this program to Maria's children in Russia, who will be a recipient of any of the funds that I raise as a result of this show. It's been in my mind since 2004 to produce this program, and the opportunity has come along now to create it for the most part in front of a live audience, but I will have some recorded interviews like yourself, and there'll be opportunity for the audience to interact with the program as it's being filmed. So we'll make that available to you in due course. One of the things that I've seen, especially since 2001, is the way in which the emotional energy of the world is flatlining.
One moment, this computer says you are now logged out.
Let me see.
Could I have leaned on that accidentally?
Oh, one moment. I'm sorry. Technical difficulties.
Okay,
All right. Okay.
Can I move this out of the way?
Yeah, you didn't touch anything. It's just that I was doing some things and then it logged me out because I was idle for a while. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, my intention in creating the program was to edify and jollify nations, to lift spirits, and to help shift some of that stinking thinking. Before we get into the questions per se, I'd really like to acknowledge your evident faith by agreeing to be part of the program and for being patron. Very honoured to have you partner me in that, and love to know what it was that made you say yes.
Well, I had some time right now to do it. I don't do very many interviews.
Yes.
I remember you fondly on the trip, and so said yes.
Awesome. Thank you. I remember the first time I phoned you in the lead up to that tour, and part of the phone call you said to me, "Don't come because of me, Pat. Come because you want to find and spend your clown self. Come because you'd really like to experience the disparity between rich and poor. And come because you'd like to make at least one Russian friend." So I certainly fulfilled on all of those things. And I think the biggest thing that I got from my clowny experience was to really shed that clown mask and get to a level of truth about who I am really. So for the listeners, I'd love to know, how did these Healing with Humour tours begin?
Well, I've had this project to build a radical hospital because the U.S. hospital system is garbage. And I did a pilot for 12 years and didn't raise any money to build. And so I had refused publicity before that. I went public. The public made it so that I had to close the radical hospital and basically become a public speaker all over the world. But after doing it a year, I was feeling a real sense of loss from not doing care work, because that's really what I'm geared to do. And I couldn't have a clinic or a hospital, so I thought about expanding our work around the world by making clown trips. And so went in 1985.
Was that the first one to Russia?
Yes.
Right, yes, okay. That was with a group of businessmen, if I remember.
Well, it was a group of, one could have called it at the time, a group of New Age stars, people who wanted a better world and saw Gorbachev coming in office as an opportunity to maybe erase some of the negativity between the two superpowers.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And it was
And
while you...
I loved it so much, I've done it ever since.
Yes, yes. You said to me on the tour, you know, it was on that tour that you discovered the plight of Russia's orphans. And, you know, that was a big part of you committing that you would do these until you no longer could.
Right. It actually wasn't on that tour, but a couple of tours later that it happened. It really happened. We didn't see it until Maria started to come clowning with us, and she did it between the tours and started to learn a lot of things that made us uncomfortable and made her commit her life.
Yeah, okay. Back here, I'm in Australia now, but I was in New Zealand for many years. And in 2001 in New Zealand, they had a Be the Change conference, which was a huge influence on a lot of people over there for them to start thinking about who they were and how they could improve themselves and their outreach and make a difference in people's lives. And a lot of the listeners, I asked people before the program, you know, what would you like me to ask, Patch? And a lot of the people asked how they might be the change and to do that in an enduring fashion. Many said we'd begun, but to keep it rolling was sometimes very hard. How is it you've made your life's work endure in the way that it has?
Well, I think a really big step was my mother gave me self-esteem. In my 50 years of medical practice, 3% of the people I've interviewed had self-esteem. So I love me. And what that means is I always think I can do it. And so that I brought that attitude. And then after my 3 mental hospitalizations at age 17, 18, and being present at Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, I realized that you don't freak out over the horrors of the world, you make revolution. And in the march of that I Have a Dream speech, I saw my tribe of political activists. And so I decided to be an activist all my life. And when you have self-esteem, all you have to do is decide, because you know you can do it. And I've had a lot of fun along the way, which is certainly important. I've stayed healthy. I think the smartest thing I did was start a commune, because tribe is our natural state of activity. And that I'm not a complainer. I'm a real appreciator, a real gratitude person. I really feel privileged that I haven't been sucked into the U.S. culture or nationalism or a whole lot of different cultures that I feel I want to change. And there is a thrill in trying to change things. I realized very quickly it doesn't happen with a magic wand. You give your life to it.
Yes. 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 And I love that you make reference to, you know, something that came to you in a moment, that with the Martin Luther King. I know in the lead up to meeting yourself, I had a series of losses. And I woke up one morning and I'd lost the pigment out of my skin. Both of my arms had gone white overnight, and I had a butterfly shape on my chest. And in that moment, I thought immediately of that part in the movie, Patch Adams, where you're with a battered old suitcase looking out over where you'll build Gesundheit. And a monarch landed on the briefcase and then came up and landed on your chest. And there was something in that moment that I didn't know, but 18 months later, I ended up touring with you. So love your reference to that kind of defining moment. One of the things that I've been talking about a lot since particularly 2001 is the whole notion of what it means to be good-humoured. And for me, that means being appropriately responsive or not. And to be responsive in that way, actually for me, has always required a very keen listening and the development of a really high level of trust. What are your thoughts around that?
Around listening and trust?
Yeah, and being good-humoured.
Well, I think once one is clearly grateful that they have friends, that they have a home, that they have their needs taken care of. So at 18, I decided to be an instrument for peace and justice and care for all people in nature all the time. And it was then that I decided to be 6 qualities: happy, funny, loving, cooperative, creative, and thoughtful, because they are qualities that make for more solid community and longer endurance for efforts, and life is also for fun.
Yes, yes, yes. Awesome.
Everything goes better with fun.
Yes, yeah. I remember as a student nurse, I wasn't kind of very aware then, but I was in matron's office a lot of times because of the mischief that I would get up to and the antics. And there was one man who had 35 broken bones, and he was in hospital for the whole 3 years of my general nurse training. And he walked on 2 sticks, to everyone's surprise, to my graduation ceremony. And he had a big scroll, and at the end of the ceremony, he read out all of those tricks and pranks and turned to me at the end and said, "You don't know what you did." And I never really got that till 2001, that innate sense of humour and sense for humour and fun has been an integral part of me and my essence. But I've had periods in my life, my mother used to say, "For goodness sake, Patricia, how silly can you be?" So there's been a bit of a waver with that. But, once you can, like you're talking, when you've got some esteem and get committed and get the clarity, I'm really hearing the clarity that you have there. In all of my research over the years, there's been a long association between humour and the fool. If we look back at the jester was given, the bad messages to give to the village, and he couched it in fun to lessen the blow. And there's a bit of that that's come through historically about humour being silly. In my view, though, I think humour is very deeply intelligent. Do you have some views on that? The intelligence of humour?
Oh, I think humor would make fun of the association. That if you decide to be humorous, one could say that comes from your intelligence. That I think I would say that about myself. I love funny, but I know that funny allows me to get away with more and get more people interested and those kinds of things. So I think intelligence, if you have it operating in your own life, looks at everything that is incoming and notices that friendliness is the way to be if you want to be good with people. And friendliness means smiling and laughing and playing. It never means being bossy or nasty or hierarchical. None of those things help relationship.
No.
So that if one makes a decision to be funny, there's a good chance it came out of their intelligence for wanting to project a particular personality.
Yeah. 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 That's that whole, I think that's that, I call it goodwill. I love that movie, Good Will Hunting, for, I mean, it wasn't really about, well, it was goodwill, but I use that a lot, that I go goodwill hunting to be looking for the good. And one of my sayings is to catch people doing something right. So to be always in that acknowledging and rewarding space, especially with your language. People need to be acknowledged and appreciated, and we get opportunities to do that all the time. My top 3 motivators are love, freedom, and spiritual intimacy. And for me, they have over the years enabled me to deeply commune with others. And I know for years in your presentations, you've been inviting people to articulate their love strategy. On the tour, we were sitting on the bus one day and you asked me, so what's your love strategy, Pat? And I said, oh, I haven't got one. I've got a marketing plan. Does that count? And you said, no. And you invited me to go home and write a love strategy. And so I did. I wrote 2,000 words. I don't know that it was a particularly good strategy per se in the pure sense of it. However, you did tell me I was the first to reply. And I was so glad to have made that expression for what I thought it was at the time. It gave me a platform which to then grow. What was the impetus for you to begin asking people about creating a love strategy?
Well, I'm sure it came from all of the things in my life. I want a world without violence and without injustice, and where we care for all people and nature. And love is the overarching label for the sum of all friendly, kind, intimate, sweet gestures. And so in trying to understand how the world is so messed up, I realize that almost nobody actually has love strategies. Mm-hmm. And so I started to see if anyone had any, and if they did, what kind. And they were not very well thought out.
Yeah. Even mine would fit in that category. I shared it.
Strategy also implies that it's something you bring. It's not something you have after the fact. That you, if I think one is concerned about love strategies, they're always observant and always speaking up, and certainly giving feedback when they feel a person is doing or not doing it well.
Yeah. I've given around about 600 presentations since the tour, and in every presentation I've shared that wee story and asked the audience, perhaps you too, would like to consider. And when we have enough gathered, we can send them to Patch, and maybe we'll end up having a book. But it's been surprising, very few people have responded, which is a shame. However, I still keep asking because I think you plant a seed and that people mightn't be able to respond in the moment, but passage of time and things will happen and they'll be in a better place to be doing and creating something. On the bus in Moscow one day, you said to me, I think I'd been talking about, how I will be when I come back from the tour. And you said, it's about the journey, Pat, and invited me to set out with an intention that I could never hope to fulfill on and to enjoy the journey. So one of my intentions was to have joyology departments in every hospital and departments of humour resources in every business. And that's been part of my rollout since then. So the question I'd like to ask is Gesundheit still your biggest vision?
Well, I think anyone who has a good fantasy life can envision peace on earth. It is not something I think that will happen in my lifetime. The Gesundheit is the project I started in 1971, and I think I've worked diligently every day on it since then. So I'm in the 47th year. It's thrilling every day.
Yes. Are there any other projects, anything else on the horizon? Anything different?
Well, I mean, we're always adding things. We've done 150 clown trips. We have a big project in Nepal and the Peruvian Amazon to stop child sexual slavery. We have built clinics in schools. Maria's Children is thriving. I meet her in a couple of weeks at the Shakespeare Festival in Stratford with her Russian orphans performing there. And so, you know, we put our noses in things all over the world and we add things.
Yep.
So 2 years ago, we added vet trips because 6,000 military vets killed themselves every year over here. And the psychiatric profession and military has no idea what to do. So we, 2 years ago, started taking 10 suicidal vets to a clown trip for a week, and it stopped all their suffering, and it's done that twice now.
Awesome. Awesome. How perfect.
So, you know, and we're always connecting with people.
Yeah. Do you have any one moment or one experience that sits perhaps as the highest expression of your work?
Oh, it's not my style. I'd rather think of 10,000 experiences the highest because they're not really in competition with each other.
Yeah.
I'm really incredibly thankful that I have the partner, Susan, that I have and what she brings to me in love and activism and a great team here. I think I have the best assistant I've ever had in Derek, and I love that my kids have also worked with me, and so all the clown moments are wonderful.
Yeah.
So I would just use the word life to say that's the wonderful thing.
Yes.
Yay, life.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. They're coming to a close patch, and there's a quote that I've seen time and time again that I actually love. So I wonder, in closing this session, if you would share that quote with us, please.
This one on this piece of paper?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay. There is no hope for human survival if we do not change to a loving world. There is no hope for rich people in the future, no hope for anybody if we don't make a world whose values are compassion and generosity. And I don't know when I first said it, but I certainly stand by it. We're in really big trouble on many fronts. The most clear is the environment. And I think both of our countries have doo-doo for leadership. Certainly I can speak fully about mine. It's such an embarrassment of leadership. He's probably the number one cause for laughter in comedy clubs.
Yes, you shouldn't be laughing perhaps so loud, but yes.
Well, it is funny that given our 500 billion brain cells and the opportunities we have for life, and what we could be doing with it, that we have sunk so low to actually think wealth of money is a big deal and wealth of friends is
Yes.
and
Yes.
so many other things. So it is
Yeah.
funny, our coming extinction. I wouldn't want to bet on what happens, but I do not pretend to think we will survive if we don't make a loving world.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree.
And you can't buy with money or with an army a safe enough place to survive the planet that is coming if we don't change. Get to work, make it fun.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Patch, thank you so much. I truly appreciate your time and look forward to engaging again shortly. And we'll arrange to be sending you links so that the programs will be available for you to watch as they roll out. Thank you. Thank you.
Good luck.
Love you
Stay
so much.
silly.
Thank you.
Have fun, Australia.
Okay, I did remember my notes. Thank you.
And I have no idea how to change this. A little red thing in the corner says leave meeting.
Hang on.
Is it a way
Hang
to
on a
get
minute.
out of the house?
Hang on a-
You see leave meeting?
I see.